Okay, so we'll get started. Thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Dan Hilson. I'm the CFO of Energy and the chair of the Charge Together program. Charge Together is a program that looks at driving the electrification of fleets in Australia, and we look at different topics, and we're supported by the Electric Vehicle Council, NRMA, ARENA, New South Wales Government, South Australian Government. And yeah, really excited today. This is a very, very important topic, and I know one that's sort of boiling up to the forefront with a lot of local government and others in the marketplace. It's definitely a good use case for various reasons for electrification, and has some great co-benefits in terms of obviously the lower volume. I was out running out the front of my house this morning at the crack of dawn, as usual, forgetting to put my rubbish out, and yeah, so it's great. It's got some great co-benefits as well. So I will hand over to Michael. It's easy for me to remember because it's Michael and Michael. I'll hand over to Michael. And look, it's really exciting also, I've got to say, these projects that happen in the background that people sort of hear about, but people just getting on with it and making this stuff happen. So, we should all look to these sort of leaders in the market as just providing so much value. And thank you to you guys for leading the way. So I'll hand over, and I hope everyone enjoys the webinar. We do take questions, so if you want to ask questions, just put them in the chat box, and then at the end of the presentations, we'll go to those questions. So I'll hand over now. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Dan. I'll just. I think you need to stop sharing it. Yep, there we go. Share mine. Okay, thanks everybody, and thanks for the opportunity to talk about this. Firstly, just the bit about the City of Casey. I think probably most people know we're in the southeast suburbs of Melbourne. We're a growth municipality, and that's probably one of our biggest characteristics, continued growth out into greenfield areas, and obviously that means a lot of pressure on services and on environment. In terms of what I wanted to talk about firstly is just to set the context of, I guess, how City of Casey signalled to the market that we are interested in this kind of innovation. So looking at EVs and looking at other innovations in the environmental space. Obviously, we have the City of Casey Council plan. Creating Australia's most livable city is our stretch goal. So we put everything towards that vision. A couple of the policy settings, we have a sustainability plan, the Rethink Your Waste strategy, emissions management plan, as a part of our package. The council plan specifically sets out that we manage wastewater, biodiversity and energy use to achieve a clean, efficient and resilient city. We encourage modes of transport that reduce emissions and congestion. We're a member of SECA, Eco-Bi Alliance and the Western Port Biosphere Alliance, which all have, I guess, similar goals in terms of achieving environmental outcomes, and particularly in relation to carbon emissions. At the moment, we've got under consideration a community emissions management plan and climate change action plan. So quite specifically in the emissions management plan, Casey's resolved to take the Take Two pledge to help Victoria meet its net zero emissions by 2050. We've also, and so part of the emissions plan is that we have a leadership target of 15% by 21-22, and a stretch target of 25% by 21-22. And they're based on 15-16 emissions. Our renewable energy targets, leadership target of 20% by 21-22, and a stretch target of 30% by 21-22. And also to a goal at the moment of carbon neutral by 2040. One of the specific actions is in that plan is to continue to investigate and trial electric vehicles. So it's quite specific, quite explicit, and provide electric vehicle charging infrastructure to the city of Casey. So they're quite specific actions that we were able to tie our evaluation to. And I guess I'm going through this. I know that most councils will have these kinds of strategies, but and plans. The reason for putting them out there, I guess, is that this, I think, sends a signal to the market that we are serious when it comes to making evaluations or considering initiatives, and it also gives the individual teams that are doing the evaluation something to link back to. We have a purchasing policy, and in the purchasing policy there is specific outcomes. We're part of the Buy Recycled Alliance. Council's committed to buying recycled, and we're a part of the green supply chain. So we specifically again talk about needing to consider that, or not needing to. That's probably too strong a word, but it provides the opportunity for teams within Casey to again link back to the purchasing policy and make some preferences for environmental choices over those that aren't meeting those criteria. And I guess this is an important point because it's not mandatory, and in fact, after the award of this contract, there was a review of our purchasing policy. So how was Casey doing in terms of buying green and sustainable procurement? And the outcomes were actually quite varied. It varied from team to team because we don't have that mandatory requirement to meet those outcomes. So it does vary a lot from team to team. But I guess in this case, being in the waste team, who's one of their outcomes is to try to achieve these goals. The evaluation panel and the procurement process was able to build it in. So I guess so. The point I guess I was making there is, yes, we have a framework. It's probably not as strong as it could be, but it does allow us to move forward. So a little bit about the hard waste service itself. It's a very popular service. As I mentioned, we're a growth suburb out in the southeast suburbs of Melbourne. So we do around 65,000 bookings per year. So it's an at-call service, and it's a very popular service. We have a high satisfaction rate, and each resident is allowed to have 2 collections per year. Prior to going out to tender, or at the same time we were going out for tender, we did a service review and a continuous improvement process. So to look at all the different ways that we could perhaps improve the service, and that included environmental outcomes. The tender process itself was in February 2018, and we built, I think, all of the recommendations out of the continuous improvement process into the actual tender process itself. Again, we in the contract documents, we didn't specifically outline you must have you must have electric vehicles. We left it fairly open, and but did allow for innovations, and the result was obviously WM Waste Management putting forward an innovation that included EV vehicles for this contract. So yes, Casey had a structure there to encourage the response, but we've really got to give kudos to WM Waste Management for responding in the way that they did. Yeah, I guess I just want to highlight that. Yes, Casey set an expectation that we wanted to go down this way, but had WM not responded in the way they did, we would still be using traditional vehicles. So some of the benefits to Casey, obviously, it gives a lot of kudos to Casey for having taken the plunge with WM and taking a lead role. We were the first municipality to have dedicated electric trucks, at least in Victoria, I think maybe in Australia. So obviously a lot of interest in seeing that happen, and I guess once we've made that first commitment, then you would expect that others will follow suit very soon after. Some of the notable environmental outcomes in the new contract, not just the electric vehicles, but WM also put forward an offer to produce process engineered fuel. Now, whilst that hasn't gone as smoothly as we would like, that's also another environmental benefit that WM has put forward, and again put their money where their mouth is, and actually given it a go right from day one. I guess a bit of the next. Sorry, the first of the trucks also, I should say, was launched at the Waste Expo in October 2019, and again, there's a lot of good press and publication that goes with this, and with being the leading edge in this regard, and it also gives the opportunity for others to learn from the process. So I suppose some of the next steps, because I think amongst all the good responses that we've had from doing this, there's also some of the traditional criticism. Yes, we're working off electricity, but we're still using coal-fired power in order to generate electricity for the vehicles. But this is a part of our overall package. Council's committed to Procurement Australia's power purchase agreement to procure renewable electricity for 100% of its public lighting over the next 10 years. And we're also exploring ways with WM, if I might say, Michael, to transition to solar power for charging vehicles at a local facility. We're still in the early discussions of that, but we're looking for options that we could move to solar energy to generate electricity for the vehicles. We're also commissioning an electric vehicle charging infrastructure strategy for Casey at the moment, and again, we're in the early stages of scoping that out. Some of the future benefits in doing this, I guess, again, it reinforces to the market that Casey is serious about this, and other councils are serious about this. And we've since had our curbside collection tender go out, and Cleanaway were successful in winning that tender, and they've committed to bringing on EVs partway through the curbside collection for recycling. So again, this was the start that signalled to the market that that we're able to take these considerations on board and make the decision within the evaluation panel that this was an overall benefit, even though the cost might have been slightly more initially. The long-term benefit was able to be considered for Casey, and that's flowed through to the curbside contract. So hopefully, it's the start of good things to come. That's probably my introduction, and I'll hand over to Michael Strickland now.
Thanks, Michael. I'll just, while Michael gets set up, I just wanted to thank you. I need to leave a bit early, but I think there'll be someone else answering questions. But yeah, I guess that the main thing handing over to Michael is that statement you made around, you guys setting the target and someone really stepping up to deliver. And similar to a webinar last week with IKEA and ANC, it really takes that partnership.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Casey, yes, we're in a position of being able to make a statement, but it really is. It really was the response from WM that has enabled this to move forward. I mean, we do have we did have the scope within our evaluation to be able to consider long-term environmental benefit, not over price, but in addition to price. But without WM making that, or I guess putting their money on the line and their reputation on the line, and they've had trials and tribulations, as we'll hear, but they've stuck with it, and I think we've ended up with a really good outcome.
Right, Michael Strickland, are you good to go?
You are muted, Chris.
You're good. We can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me? Good. Okay, so yeah, look, thanks Dan and thanks Michael for the opportunity to present today. Just as a little bit of background, so WM Waste Management is a Melbourne-based waste management company, and we provide hard waste collections to 17 municipalities around Victoria. Also hire skips and hook lift bins, provide bulk mattress collections, and through our sister company KTS Recycling, we operate 4 resource recovery and recycling centres around Melbourne, including a hard waste recycling facility where we take Casey's material, and a mattress recycling facility. So just on the screen is one of the 3 EV trucks we purchased for the Casey collection. And just the other thing something that's interesting about it is, apart from the EV component, is It's we call it a combination truck because it's actually got a just behind the cabin. There's a tray, a caged sort of tray component of the truck and we've got actually on the other side of the truck there's a lifter so we can put fridges there or TVs, basically things, salvageable goods, things that can't be crushed from the collection go into that caged area. And then at the back there's a traditional rear-loaded compactor component where we can put the remaining hard waste. And with these sort of trucks, we can pick up everything at once from a person's hard waste. And so even the mattresses and scrap metal, they go in the back here, and then the whole truckload at the moment is taken to Knox transfer station where we've got a recycling facility and can separate the scrap metal, the mattresses, etc. And as Michael said, we're set up to make process engineered fuel. So we like to think that we're WM Waste Management is we like to think we're a very innovative company. So the electric trucks is really just one example of the things we're looking at. We're very fortunate. The owner of the business, Mark Jeffs, he's a very hands-on sort of person who loves to try new things. His background is as a mechanic, and he loves to try new innovations with the trucks or with the recycling, and so he's always looking at these sort of things. And so it's also the beauty of that is that because we don't have like an overseas board of directors, we don't have to sort of wait for years to get sort of the okay on trying something like electric trucks. We can sort of make changes quite quickly when opportunities arise. And I suppose with that innovation, and again, as an example of these electric trucks is we like to think that we've been able to sort of pull the industry along a bit. I think that some of our competitors were a little bit shocked when we put in electric trucks into Casey and thought they better jump on the bandwagon after that. So I think we're sort of put the cat amongst the pigeons a bit there. So apart from the electric trucks, previous innovation we've done with the vehicles is we were the first waste company running the hybrid diesel electric trucks, and it was back in 2008. We were running tray trucks that were so basically like the similar to a Prius, I suppose, in its time, but they were trucks. And so we've done quite a few innovative things over the years. So with the trucks that we used, it wasn't possible to buy off-the-shelf electric trucks or heavy vehicles when we were looking at buying these trucks. And so what we did was we bought what are called gliders, which means they're basically a truck. It's a cab chassis, but it doesn't have an engine or like fuel tanks or associated components in it. And so it's just the chassis and the cab, and we supplied them to C Electric to put their C drive electric motors into. It's interesting because normally companies don't like to sell truck companies don't like to sell trucks without motors in them, and so it's not as easy as you think to buy a glider. And we're a little bit lucky that two of the trucks we bought from Suez from their Brisbane collection, because they'd had a really big waste collection there, and they had to have some spare parts for their other trucks, and so they basically had two excess trucks which they only wanted the engines and associated parts from them, and so they're happy to just sell the chassis, and so that's how we got two of our trucks. Anyway, and then once people like Mercedes heard what we were doing and putting electric motors in, they actually said, all right, we don't normally like to sell glider, but because of what you're doing, we'll sell it to you in this case. And so that worked out okay. So we've got one Acco and 2 Mercedes at the moment, so it's a little bit of a hodgepodge. One of the good things about C Electric and Superior Pack is they're both Australian manufacturers or companies, and so C Electric are just in Dandenong, so it's close by and very close to Casey as well. So it's easy to sort of, it means that all the work's being done in Australia. Superior Pack were building the bodies, and so that's all the work was really done in Australia, which was, you know, really pleasing. The trucks have 220 kilowatt hour NMC batteries. They do have some regenerative charging during braking, although I'd say I'm not sure if we get a lot of extra charging from that, but we do get some. As I said before, the design of the truck is as a compactor tray combination rather than as just a traditional compactor truck only. You can see the GVM, 23.5 tonne. We still, the compactor body is still basically the same as a normal compactor body and uses hydraulics to operate the compactor. And the pump, so the hydraulic system's all the same, but there's just an electric pump to pressurize the hydraulic line rather than using the normal, a pump off your diesel engine. The first truck we got was launched at the Waste Expo in October 2018. And this is just, I just want to just quickly put in a picture of the motor, because I'm always amazed at how small the motor is for the truck. So that's the motor at the back. The where the motor normally is for a cab chassis truck is full of batteries, and so all the batteries are sort of at the front and the engine's at the back. So it's sort of and the good thing is the engine's actually quite close to is just basically between the wheels at the back. So instead of having a long sort of drive line, the motor's right where the wheels are. So that's actually quite a good thing too. So here's just the guys at work, and this is basically what a hard rubbish collection looks like in Casey. As Michael said, the collections are book collections, and so they're not too far apart. Normally, you'd pick up from one and then drive a couple of streets to pick up another one, and so there is a bit of stop-starting going on, but not as much as, say, you'd get in a blanket sort of area-wide collection where sort of every house virtually would have some stuff out. So with the trucks, the range is only about 80 k's, which has been quite disappointing for us, to be honest. Originally, when we were buying them, we were led to believe they might be up to 250 kilometres, and so as you can see, it's sort of like a third of the distance of what we thought we were going to get out of them. We believe the maintenance costs are reduced. However, it's still hard. We still probably haven't got enough data to really accurately say what the saving and maintenance costs are, because we have had to make a change because they're sort of like a trial really. We've had to make a number of changes to them, changing pumps and things like that on them, and so there's been money spent on them since buying them, and so it's hard to say how much maintenance saving we'd get, but we'd expect. I mean, you're obviously not changing things like motor oil, and there's things like less brake wear. There's obviously a lot less moving parts, and so you would think that it would be they'd be significantly reduced. One of the problems, and I actually didn't put it on the slide there, was that we had when we first got them was that had trouble with the truck computers. As you know, if you buy a car or a truck, it's all very computerized, and because we bought trucks that were built to be diesel trucks, the computers were all set up to run as diesel engines and to run AdBlue and things like that. And so it actually, they had a lot of difficulty at first trying to reprogram the computers to fully to work the electric properly. And so there was a few initial problems with that. And just the other just an issue we had with it, which I didn't put on the slide, was also just with actually getting them road registered because of making a major change, such a major change to the truck. We had some issues with just getting them back on the road because obviously they were registered to be diesel trucks, and then all of a sudden it's not a diesel engine in them, and so there was a few issues with just even getting them to get like roadworthies to get them on the road as well. They require 3-phase 32 amp power points to charge and take 8 hours to charge, and so that's actually a lot of power. I suppose we probably didn't really think about how much power we needed to charge the trucks until we had them, but a typical factory might only have 80 to 100 amps available to charge, and so just in a typical factory you might only be able to charge 2 or 3 at a time, and so that's sort of that was another issue we had straight off, was just being able to have to be able to charge the trucks. The trucks are very quiet, which is good. Although the compactions themselves, when they're actually loading, there's still noise from the compaction, but they they can be. I suppose it might be a little bit because they are down residential streets. So I suppose it's just we haven't had anyone complaining, but I think that you'd probably get a little bit of a fright if you looked up and all of a sudden there's a truck behind you that you didn't hear if you're walking along potentially. There's obviously been a great reduction in costs from the not using fuel and oil, although obviously there's still a lot of power used, and we've calculated that we're probably saving about 170 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent per load. That's really just based on we reckon that when we use it, if we use a diesel truck to do the collection in Casey, it uses about roughly about 60 litres a load, and so at about a 6-tonne load, we reckon it's about 170 kilograms roughly of carbon dioxide equivalent saved. So that's quite a good saving. Although the interesting thing was when you sort of do all the calculations of the waste to landfill and the as well as the savings in diesel, the emissions from landfill are way higher. The carbon dioxide emissions are way higher than what you save on actual travel, unfortunately. But it still is quite a good good saving though. With the other issues, so it was one thing I suppose we didn't think about at first is that you get a high power loss at high speed, and it probably makes, when you think about it more, it makes sense. But if we're heading along the East Link from Casey back to Knox Transfer Station, it just uses so much power to get to or fro from there, and it's because the electric motor, it hasn't got a whole lot of gearing. It's just a motor, and so if it runs at high revs, it uses a lot of power, and so that's been a problem. And they probably only really go about 80 kilometres an hour max. You could say down a hill it might be 90 kilometres, but and so they're not quite as fast as the diesel trucks. The charging time is an issue for us. The 8 hours is a long time, and so it means that just to do a top-up sort of charge during the day, you don't really achieve a lot. If you only sort of put it on for like half an hour or so, it doesn't really do much. And so really we have to just, at the moment, we just have to recharge at the end of the shift. With all the batteries, even though we took the diesel motor out and all accessories and stuff and the fuel tank, the weight of all the batteries and the motor, it's approximately 600 kilograms heavier than the equivalent sort of diesel truck, I'd say. It's hard to be exact with that because we don't have the exact equivalent truck as a diesel, but we think it's about 600 kilograms. So going forward, so to address some of these issues and to WM's purchased a depot in Hallam, so Hallam's in the Casey area, so we're within the collection area, and the intention, and we're just running through the process at the moment. The planning process is to be able to tip the trucks at the Hallam depot, and so that way they've only got a short travel time to the collection area and back. And as I was saying, we actually use up a lot of power just actually doing the travelling, rather than when it's just picking up the waste. It doesn't use much power doing that. If it's just sort of driving slowly and compacting and stuff, that doesn't use much power at all. But when it's that travel between sites is the problem. So we've significantly reduced that by getting this Hallam site. And so if they can tip there, then we can get, at the moment, we're only really getting the one load per truck per day in while they're sort of at Knox. And so by having this Hallam depot, we should be able to get at least 2 loads a day in per truck, and so that'll be a big improvement in performance. As Michael was saying, at this Hallam facility, we're also currently investigating installing solar on the roof to charge the trucks, and so we can either use the solar. The thing about the solar, though, is that the solar, while the sun's shining, we're out working, and then at night the sun's not shining. So we either have to just do it as like an energy offset, saying here we've produced this much power, but we've used this much power. Or we're also looking at the idea of even having a solar to charge a battery on site, and then from that battery storage to charge trucks when they come in at the end of the day. I mean, they will finish early enough to get some benefit of solar directly, but then most of the time it'll be night time when they're getting charged. So we've ordered 3 second generation trucks, which we're sure will be have some significant improvements on the first generation. C Electric have learned a lot from the trucks that they've already built for us, and we've learned a few things too. So they're going to get some new gliders in. They're going to do a lot more of like the assembly of the truck themselves rather than sort of buying, and so that'll sort of save a bit of time as well, and improve the cab chassis, be a bit more user friendly for them that way. The new trucks, they're looking to be able to rapid charge them, or have an ability to rapid charge them, and so that means that we can fully charge a truck in under an hour. And so if a crew comes back to unload and have their lunch with the truck plugged in if they have a half-hour break, then we're looking at it being like a bit of a 60% sort of top up again. And so, they've got to have plenty of power to go out and do another load. The new trucks will have extra battery capacity anyway, and so they'll have a bit of extra range just from the extra batteries. And they're going to have what's called a lazy axle to reduce weight, which means that at the moment there's 2 rear axles, and normally, with the current trucks, there's each axle has a diff to make the wheels go, and by having a lazy axle, it means the rear axle won't have a diff, and so the rear axle isn't is basically just not getting power into it. It's just it's just rolling the last axle, and not having a diff in it has the advantage of a saving of about 300 or so kgs of weight, and it also allows to make a more sophisticated diff on the other axle, where we can have a 2-speed diff to reduce the power consumption at high speed. And so once the truck's going faster than so it'll be like 2 speeds, it'll be like about up to about 50 to 60 kilometres an hour will be like one diff setting, and then after that will be a different diff setting, and on the differential, and so that'll mean it'll be able to go faster and also use less power at a higher speed. So that'll be pretty good as well. The only thing is that we'll reduce weight by having that lazy axle, but we'll pick up extra weight by having extra batteries, and so it means that the trucks will still be a similar weight to previously. So C Electric is saying the range should be more like 120 to 130 kilometres now. And so having that greater range plus the ability to rapid charge and having the trucks based in Hallam, with that combination, we should really be able to be looking at getting 3 loads a day out of them, which would be a huge improvement on getting just the 1 load a day at the moment. So at the moment, we've got the 3 electric trucks in Casey, but we've also got a number of standard diesel trucks working in Casey as well, because as Michael said, there's a lot of demand in Casey, 65,000 collections a year. But by having putting these changes in place and getting this sort of second generation of trucks, it means we'll be able to be able to just do the collection with the electric trucks rather than having any diesel trucks. So that's basically it for my talk. So
great.
I'm going to hand back to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Michael.
That's right.
We've got quite a lot of questions coming through. I have to note that some of them are quite technical. So
okay.
If you want to take them on notice, then feel free.
Yeah, I might have to. I'm afraid I'm not the most. I'm the really the owner. Mark Jeffs he's the guy to do it, but he's not really a big talker, I'm afraid. But
that's fine. Look, it doesn't matter. We'll get back to people. I know most of the people on the call.
Do you want me to stop sharing the
Sure. That's okay.
Stop.
Yeah, Alex can put up something.
Yep.
Great. Well, look, I think there's one that's sort of come in from a couple of people around hydrogen, and so maybe just a couple of minutes. Did you consider hydrogen on this journey, either you or the council, Casey?
We didn't at this time, but I can see there's a lot of potentially a lot of benefits in hydrogen for heavy vehicles in the future. I suppose when we were looking at this, which was like the start of 2018, we just thought that the technology seemed to be more there for these electric trucks than it did for hydrogen, and so I suppose that's why we've gone that way.
Yeah, from a council point of view, also when we're tendering, we try not to provide the solution, but provide the opportunity to provide the solution. So it's not specifying hydrogen over EV. We didn't know what we were going to get, but it enables us to make that evaluation when the tenders are put in.
Great. I think someone's asked what size in cubic meters are the trucks.
Oh yeah, the compactor component is 17 cubic meters, and the tray sort of component is probably about 8.5 cubic meters.
Great. So there's some questions around the DC charging or moving to faster chargers in general.
Right.
I mean, do you have any more thoughts of that? I mean, Jeff, you've asked a question. Feel free to jump in if you've actually got any thoughts you'd like to put forward. But yeah, otherwise, or anyone on the call that's from the charging infrastructure provider, happy for you to have a chat about it.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, I put a couple of notes in there. Was querying about rep or DC fast charging, and obviously some of that's been discussed. But I know there was a concern around the available energy at these depots for putting charging infrastructure in. So the solution around that would be for energy management to dynamically manage the available power. So you could have more than just the one rapid charger or AC charger.
Yep.
And throttle them up and down. So we've got systems that can help to do that. So.
Yeah. We're talking to Jet Charge at the moment about our charging systems at Hallam. So, yeah, hopefully they'll come up with something like that as well.
Yeah, well, that's good because that's what we do.
No, it's Jeff's from Jet Charge. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think there's a few questions here around kind of parasitic power or power being used by other things in the vehicle. So there's some questions around the split between energy consumed, moving the vehicle, and from the compaction operation. Have you got any sort of thoughts on that or measurements, or did you see that as important?
I haven't got accurate data, but it appears that the power used for the compactor isn't too great because it's just I suppose because it's a hydraulic system, all it has to do is just keep the pressure up. All the electric pump is doing is just keeping the pressure up in the hydraulic system, and so it charges it up. It doesn't have to sort of instantly provide the power. It's sort of charging it up all the time. But it was a problem. That was one of the problems we had when we first got the trucks, though, was that the pumps were undersized. I think that Sea Electric were trying to reduce as many parasitic sort of loads as they could, and Sea Electric and Superior Pack, and so I think that the pumps initially were undersized, but my feeling is that they don't. It is only still a small component of the power used is for the compactor.
Sort of a similar one, I guess, on the hydraulic. Does a hydraulic motor run all the time?
Well, it's just whenever the pressure drops, then the pump would have to come on to recharge to keep the pressure up. And obviously when the compactor is working, the pump will be working as well. But just in general, as the truck's driving along, it's just if the pressure sort of drops a little bit, then the pump will come on for a little bit, and it just keeps it up to just keeps it charged. That's my understanding.
Okay, I've got one. The other, Michael. In general, I assume that are you taking those scope 2 emissions from the garbage onto your carbon emissions inventory? Do you actually account for them, or is that?
Under the initial emissions management plan, it didn't, I believe, and but we are forecasting that, and we're actually forecasting that we could be carbon neutral ahead of the 2040 target, and that will include landfill waste and waste from and carbon emissions from the collection contracts. So that work is being done, but the initial EMP, I believe, did not take that into consideration. I'm going to have to apologise because I need to move to another meeting, and but hopefully the City of Casey ESD officer is in the audience, Mark Ackerster, who may be able to add to any ESD type questions there.
Great. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I know in this crazy time it's hard for everybody to free up time.
No, pleasure.
So just a question. I mean, the actual total cost of ownership model that you used to do the business case, I assume that was WM Waste Management that did that business case. How did you go about doing that to try to work out in advance? Was it SEA, or who helped you to look at what this might cost for you, or the return on investment, I should say?
Well, I suppose we had we really just looked at we had to make obviously a number of estimates about the running cost of the trucks. We already had good quotes on the cost of buying the trucks, and yeah, so I suppose we just had to make some projections on what we thought it would cost. And so, as Michael said, it did cost a little bit more. We provided a standard option as well as an electric vehicle option. An electric vehicle option was a little bit more expensive, and yeah, we just did it internally though. Really, the costings.
And then I guess another question is around sort of the rest of the value chain. So in terms of training and development of your staff, in terms of the servicing of the vehicle and mechanical, electrical skills, how have you gone about that process? Do you do that internally, or is it just been outsourced to C, or how have you gone about that training process?
Probably C Electric have been doing all the electrical type stuff, mostly electrical type stuff like that. I mean, we do have an auto elect guy, but he's more fitting other bit, not really to do with the engine and stuff itself. And so really, they've been, and I suppose they're sort of wanting the trucks to work properly as well. So they've been sort of providing a fair bit of assistance as far as any issues to do. And everything is as I said, I think from a maintenance point of view, I don't think there's not nearly as much maintenance as like a normal truck anyway, I don't think, because there's not many moving parts.
And I guess a final question, from an industry perspective, or the waste management industry, I mean, is there scope for further innovations around the operational, like the way you do your job, as opposed to trying to get the vehicles to sort of fit? So, you hear a lot of things about obviously smaller or autonomous or different innovations. Do you see sort of any things that might change the operations that might be more conducive to electric vehicles, or is it really a case of it is the way you do business? It's about finding electric vehicles that fit that business use case.
Look, at this stage, it's probably about adapting the vehicle to the collection. I suppose a big part of the collection is the resource recovery components as well, and so and that's why we've gone to the design we have on the truck, because you do need to pick up some stuff undamaged, and some stuff you can but other stuff you can compact, and that makes it a lot more efficient to carry. And so you've got to take those things into account, I suppose. And so you really need the vehicles to be able to do both. Whether you have separate vehicles, but then you've got extra costs for running extra vehicles. That's the other thing.
No worries. Well, I think that's pretty much coming to the end. If no one else, there's one suggestion there whether you can replace hydraulics with direct electric motors, similar to many modern power systems.
Yeah.
One quick question.
Yep.
So Michael from Citibank Ringer, what is your anticipated lifespan of the vehicles before you decide that it's time to dispose of?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. Yeah, look, normally we work on about 7 years or so to be turning over a vehicle, but I would hope that they would last longer than that. I'd be sort of hoping them to be more like about 10 years, because, as I was saying, just the as far as like the motor is concerned, I would have thought the motor should last a long time compared to a diesel motor. It should be a lot better, and just there should even be a little bit less sort of wear and tear on the truck itself, I think. So I would have hoped we'd get 10 years out of them, but it's still to be determined, isn't it?
Sure. Anyone else want to feel free to just unmute and ask a question if there's any last ones. We've got time for one more question.
Yeah, hi, Bryn calling in from Leighton Quarry City Council. Thanks very much for the presentation, Michael. I guess I wasn't really sort of aware why a sort of a mixed compactor and solid goods truck was utilised for the trial? Was that because of a business assessment that was the best fit for the electric vehicle? And I was just curious to know if like a general waste collection bin that's going to pick up wheelie bins on a very start-stop sort of, I guess, milk run or garbage run is going to be suitable for electric.
Well, a few things. One, our company doesn't do the sort of wheelie bins, and so we do the hard waste collections. But one of the things about this type of vehicle can just go to it just means we only need one vehicle to go to a house rather than multiple vehicles. And the beauty about this design as well is that it's because it's not a full compactor. The issue of having more, like an extra 600 kilograms of weight on the truck, isn't as big a deal because we're not likely to overload the truck anyway because part of it's a tray truck. And so from maintaining your sort of legal weights point of view, it's, even though it's a heavier truck, it can still, achieve what we wanted to achieve. But I would definitely say that they could be good for doing side lifter work. But the only thing I'd say is that you'd want to just be staying in your local area. Like if you have to do side lifter work and then drive an hour to tip off your load and then an hour back again, then that'll be a real problem. But if you can just tip really close by at a recycling facility or a landfill, which is like close to the collection area, then I think that'd work fine. And the other thing is you don't want to have like a lot of hills either. Like that's the other thing. They do lose power if they have to go up and down hills a lot too.
Yeah, sure.
Right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for that response.
Great. And so I think Philip's put in a response to you there too, Bryn. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining, and thank you so much for the presentation, Michael, and to Michael who's left. It's been really, really useful, and as I said, given these crazy times, thank you for everyone for attending. I know it's very difficult. So we'll have another webinar next week with Renault, the future of their sort of future transport vision, and we'll have a couple more in the near future, which is really exciting. So please, get other people to sign up to the program, www.chargetogether.org. Hopefully you find it useful and you can pass it on to your colleagues who will also find it useful. There's a range of other things, as some of you may know, in the program in terms of knowledge bases, tools and the Better Fleet platform that can help to accelerate transition to electric vehicles. So I look forward to seeing you all again in the future, and please all be safe in these difficult times. I'll talk to you next time. I'll see you next time.
Great. Thanks, Dan.